Nigeria's inflation declines for fifth consecutive month. Central Bank of Nigeria to establish Nigerian International Financial Center in 12 months. Asia Pacific stocks fall as China's retail sales data disappoints. Plus, oil prices climb after drawdown in stocks. Positive demand outlook. Details of this and more on Business Express, and we are reaching you from Abuja, Nigeria's capital. I am Benny Adams, your guide. Good to have you join us on the business side of life. I'll start by telling you that the Consumer Price Index, which measures inflation rate, fell to 17.01% in August. This was contained in the latest data released by the National Bureau of Statistics. According to the latest CPI report, the rate is 0.37 percentage points lower than 17.38% recorded in July this year. This is the fifth consecutive month that the country's inflation rate will be trending downwards since March this year. Inflation dropped from 18.17% in March to 18.12% in April before dropping further to 17.93%. 17.75% and 17.38% in the months of May, June, and July. Month-on-month basis, the headline inflation index increased by 1.02% in August 2021, adding that this is 0.09% rate higher than the 0.93% recorded in July 2021. Sequel to the Minister's approval, the Accountant General of the Federation, Ahmed Idris, inaugurated an interministerial committee to review the financial regulations. Speaking at the inauguration, the Accountant General of the Federation said it became imperative to carry out the review as the current financial regulations, which came into effect in 2009, is no longer relevant and useful in driving the public financial management reforms of the government. Idris, while reaffirming that the review underscored government's effort at entrenching probity, accountability, and transparency in the management of public financial resources, urged the committee to consult widely and come up with financial regulations that will stand the test of time. The review, which has been approved by the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Zainab Ahmed, is meant to bring the financial regulations up to tune with current realities and best practices. The Central Bank of Nigeria says it will be establishing the Nigerian National Center in a bid to consolidate on the growth and resilience of Nigerian banks in the last decade. Central Bank Governor Godwin Emefiele said this at an ongoing 14th Annual Banking and Finance Conference in Abuja.
IFC will act as an international gateway for capital and investments driven by technology, payment system infrastructure. This new financial hub will curate local and international banks to make them global champions. The NIFC will be a 24/7 financial center that will complement London, New York, and Singapore financial centers and enable an acceleration of our homegrown initiatives such as the Infracorp PLC.
Let's see how the Naira is exchanging for other currencies. The Commodity and Export Department of the Federal Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment is collaborating with stakeholders across the e-commerce ecosystem to develop a strategic framework that will grow the fortunes of e-commerce, whose estimated global sales is put at more than $29 trillion, with Nigeria having its fair share.
In recent times, e-commerce has grown from 14% in 2019 to 17% in 2020. The current e-commerce spending in Nigeria is estimated at about 13 billion per annum and is projected to rise to about $75 billion in revenues per annum by 2025.
The provision of quality health care for the citizens is a task before the federal government to enable it build healthy workforce. To this end, the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, FCCPC, has met with healthcare providers to educate Nigerians on the content of the Patient's Bill of Rights launched in 2018. Bosede Ebo reports.
The Bill of Rights is a deliberate step by the federal government to protect the rights of the patient in early health facilities. But in many instances, the patient is treated like an individual without rights. A growing practice the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, FCCPC, is set to address.
Never be the real change that society not only demands, but also deserves.
Preventing the complications that will make patients complain is far more important than actually waiting until the patients have a problem.
How do we address such issues about when the right of the patient stop?
For the executive vice chairman of the commission, Babatunde Irukera, the concerted effort is geared towards achieving consumers' rights in promoting safer healthcare standard.
Can we use this to gain momentum? Can we press the reset button on even this softer infrastructure? How we treat people, how we show them compassion, how we are responsive, how the billing is transparent.
The bill focuses on 12 areas of patients' rights. Among them are access to information, quality of care, and the right to privacy. In Abuja, Bosede Ebo.
Nigeria spent a total of 601.51 billion naira on the importation of motor vehicles in the first half of this year. This is contained in the recently released Foreign Trade Export report published by the National Bureau of Statistics. This represents a 15% increase compared to 523.57 billion naira recorded in the corresponding period of 2020. Despite the reduced import duties on vehicles, vehicle imports accounted for 4.4% of total imports of 13.8 trillion naira recorded in the period under review. Meanwhile, a total of 1.09 trillion naira was spent on vehicle imports in the previous year. In the second quarter of 2021, imports of passenger cars grew by 14.03% to 311.63 billion compared to the corresponding quarter of 2020, where imports for the same item stood at 273.28 billion naira. Joining me to talk on vehicle importation and automotive industry in Nigeria is the Director General, National Automotive Design and Development Council, Jelani Aliu. He is also a world-renowned automobile designer. Good to have you join us on Business Express.
My pleasure. Yes.
Well, so much has happened in the automotive industry. Years back, there's been efforts to ensure local production and reduce imports. And I understand that import tariff duties went as high as 70% at some point. Then of recent we had 35%, but we now have 5%. What does that say? Does this help local production?
Well, when you look at the automotive industry, the bottom line is what value is it going to add to any economy or any nation? For Nigeria, the automotive industry, if we give it all the support that it needs, means we'll be generating tens, if not hundreds of thousands of jobs. As we speak, the Nigerian automotive sector employs directly and indirectly 50,000 Nigerians. So we believe it's already adding value, and we believe it needs to be given even more support to be even more successful. As we speak, we have very renowned and credible companies and investors that have put into Nigeria about 500 billion naira to set up factories to produce and assemble vehicles. Not too long ago, we took a trip to see some of these companies, to see their latest activities. We were at Dangote Sinotruck, we were at Innoson, we were at Elizade, Honda, Larry Shutu, Meccano. So there's a lot of activity already happening in Nigeria. I think it is being dismissed because people expect a made in Nigeria car to be a ramshackle vehicle that looks like it came out of the 70s. But these vehicles produced and assembled in Nigeria are as good as vehicles assembled or produced anywhere. For example, a Honda HR-V assembled in Ota in Ogun State is the same type of vehicle assembled in Japan or anywhere in the world. The standards.
Looking at, sorry to cut you, looking at the assemblage, we're beginning to have more of this assemblage in Nigeria now. I remember back in the 70s, we had automobile giants, the later packed out. Now you're bringing them in. Now let's talk about the cost and affordability of these vehicles. Now that they are no longer assembled or manufactured in Japan, now it is in Nigeria. What is the cost like?
Yes, when you look at the cost of any product, it is tied to international markets. It is tied to international market forces. Because the automotive sector has moved away from being operated as islands. When Peugeot and Volkswagen were here, the setup of vehicle production globally was different. Now vehicles are produced as a regional collaborative effort. So for example, a vehicle that is, let's say, tagged as made in the United States or made in America actually has parts coming from Japan, China, Mexico. So now when you talk about producing a vehicle, you are part of an ecosystem that consists of producers and suppliers from around the world. So with the rate of the dollar, there's only so low you can go with the price of any product, unless you do everything within your borders, which is no longer the case with automotive production. But we continue to work very closely with automotive producers and assemblers to continue to bring the cost of vehicles down. And you know, the challenges in Nigeria is not necessarily the price of the vehicle, but the purchasing power of the average Nigerian. We all know how low our salaries are, and in any part of the world, when you need a new car, you don't have to put down 100% of the cost of that vehicle to be able to drive off with it. There are financing schemes that are available across the world.
Yes, talking about the vehicle finances scheme, I remember your agency brought that to bear, introduced that. Where are we on this?
We're almost there in terms of deploying it. We have an MOA with one of the banks that we're talking with. We're talking with Jaiz, Zenith, and Wema, very advanced stage. Like I said, we actually have an MOA with one of those banks. As soon as we get the necessary approval, we are ready to run with it.
You drove into these premises with an electric car. How many of those do we have around, and how are you able to sustain it? How is it being operated? Are we having a dual component engine, or is it strictly electric, and how is it being charged? And how many of them do we have around? And how affordable that is?
Yes. I did come in an electric vehicle, the Hyundai Kona electric. It's a remarkable vehicle. Electric vehicles are not just the future, they are the now. And they are the now for Nigeria too. This particular model of vehicle is assembled here in the country. There are quite a few of them out there. And then including, there are also other electric vehicles that people have bought and are using in Nigeria. We also have another company, Jet Systems, that is right now testing the electric van. These vehicles are amazing. They are space age. At the same time, they are very user friendly. This vehicle is charged at work. You just plug it into any outlet that can take an air conditioner or refrigerator, and you're up and running and charging that vehicle. So they sound like an impossibility, but they're very easy. They're actually much easier to use and operate and own than a traditional fossil fuel powered vehicle. In terms of affordability, they are a little bit more expensive than a comparative petrol powered vehicle, but the actual cost of ownership, that is the amount of money that you spend over the lifetime of that vehicle, is much lower because there's no more fuel to put into that vehicle. There's no more engine oil to change, no filters, no plugs. All those things that bog you down in terms of having to maintain a vehicle, all those are gone. Very simple technology, sophisticated, but very simple and very fluid. It's a dynamic type of vehicle, and I would sort of encourage anyone who could buy an electric vehicle to buy one, or if you just want to take it for a spin, come to NADDC corporate headquarters here in Abuja, and we'll be glad to have you drive this vehicle to feel how fantastic this technology is.
Well, there has been investment in the automotive industry. Can you tell us some of these interventions? From what you've said now, it seems that the whole thing is private sector driven. How is it like? Is there a balance? What investments are you putting in as government to ensure this affordability?
Yes, well, the bottom line is we are implementing what is called the NAIDP, the National Automotive Industry Development Plan. It's a policy, a set of programs and initiatives to support local production and discourage importation. At the end of the day, it's all about empowering the private sector to produce in the country. They say government is not in the business of business, but we're here ever ready to support private sector to produce locally. But as we implement the NAIDP, we deal with investment promotion that has led to this huge influx of money to set up these factories in Lagos, Inouye, Ota, Kaduna, Kano. So that is key to it. Then we're also working on infrastructure. We're right now working on setting up 3 automotive industrial parks, Kaduna, Ede, and Inouye, so as to provide locations with all the necessary infrastructure for plug-in and play. We also do a lot of skills development, where so far we've empowered up to 20,000 Nigerian youth in mechatronics. We've also built 6 automotive training centers, 1 in each geopolitical zone. We're also working on market development and also setting up standards testing facilities to ensure that the spare parts produced or brought into Nigeria meet minimum global standards. So we encourage private sector to invest. At the same time, as government, we are putting in resources to train people, to enable infrastructure, to set up training facilities.
It seems a whole lot is happening at the same time. How impactful would this be? Talking about the demand, exports is still like, we have figures like 720,000, and local demand is still 14,000. But a lot is being done. So how soon are we going to feel the impact of all of these reforms?
We're already feeling the impact. I mean, just being able to drive in an electric vehicle assembled in Nigeria is a huge milestone. We're not just talking about producing vehicles, we're talking about running with the rest of the world in terms of advanced technology. I believe that is huge. And that is just the very first one. We have, like I mentioned, the Jet Systems electric van already on the road. We have another company that are developing their own electric vehicles. So we've come a long way. We have these huge investments. You just need to take a trip to see how much has been invested by Dangote, by Innoson, by Lanre Shutu, and other companies, and you'll be amazed by what is happening already. And then when you talked about the demand and the production as we speak is less than the demand, yes. As we speak, these companies that have invested in Nigeria can produce. They can produce up to 400,000 vehicles per year. That's what they can do. They're not producing that many because Nigerians aren't buying that many. But tomorrow, if we were able to buy, if Nigerians could buy 400,000 vehicles, these companies are ready to do that. And like I mentioned earlier, the automotive sector has moved a long way since the time of Henry Ford, when he virtually produced every component within his factory for the Model T. Right now, whether it's a Honda or Mercedes or Toyota, the main company conceives the vehicle, they design it, they develop it, but they have parts coming in from hundreds of suppliers.
Yes, talking about parts, where is the place of local research? Our local institutions, our investors involved in the research in this line of electric vehicles?
Yes, so when we started talking about electric vehicles, people thought we were crazy. You just aren't supposed to think that way in Nigeria. You have problems with power. We said no. We will not allow ourselves to be defined by the current problems. We will go for what we believe we need. So we went ahead and worked with companies to start assembling these vehicles. Then the question, how do you power them? We said, okay, renewable energy. And that is why we have strategized, designed and commissioned 2 100% electric vehicle charging stations. One at Smart Nford University, Sokoto, the second one at University of Lagos. Now we're working on the third one, University of Nigeria in Nsukka. We chose to site them in universities, not just to prove that the concept works, but to allow our young Nigerians to touch, feel, kick this technology, understand it, do some R&D, and come up with solutions even better than what we have today for even more efficient Nigerian and African applications. So we are out there, we're working with universities. NADDC has been instrumental in introducing automotive engineering to a number of universities in Nigeria. We have donated equipment to a number of universities and polytechnics to aid with automotive engineering classes and courses.
Jelani Aliu, you're actually a blessing to Nigeria and the world at this time. Driving an electric vehicle is actually very possible. We've seen it. How about get to ride in one soon?
It's out there, please, after this show.
Thank you so very much for sharing your ideas with us at this particular time. We'll get to talk more and more about this some other time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes.
Well, gold steady above $1,800 as U.S. inflation raises doubt on Fed taper timeline. Let's look at the commodity prices. Stocks gained midweek, advancing by 0.12% to see the all-share index close at 38,968.34 points. Equity capitalization settled at 20.303 trillion naira. 141 million shares worth 2,973 billion naira exchanged hands in 3,079 deals. Universal Insurance, Zenith Bank, and United Capital were the most active stocks. Advances were led by UACN, Property, Northern Nigeria, Flour Mills, and Nwando, while the decliners were led by Transcap, Consolidated, Hallmark, and Prestige Insurance. Asia Pacific stocks fall as China's retail sales data disappoints. Casino stocks in Hong Kong plunge. Bossere Abel brings us up to speed with global stock market update.
Hello and welcome to the Global Market Review. Global stocks eased on Wednesday as weaker than expected Chinese data cast a veil over economic recovery, and a spike in UK prices fueled the intense debates over inflation's staying power. Shares in Asia were largely lower, with Hong Kong Hang Seng Index dipping 1.84% at 25,033.21, falling more than 1% for the third straight session. The Shanghai Composite dipped 0.17% at 3,656.22, and the Nikkei also dropped 0.52% to close 30,511.71. European markets were slightly lower on Wednesday after weak Chinese economic data reignited worries that global growth is slowing. London FTSE added 0.15% at 7,045.39, while CAC 40 dipped 0.43%. DAX also was on the low. U.S. stocks bounced a bit on Wednesday after the Dow Jones Industrial Average dropped nearly 300 points on Tuesday, the latest in a string of bad trading sessions this September. Meanwhile, African markets are all in the red, tracking global sentiment. That's the Global Markets Review. I am Boss Sede Abel.
On that global note, we'll wrap this edition of Business Express. Remember to keep in touch with us. Do send in your comments, observations, and suggestions. Also be informed that all previous episodes are available on YouTube on NTA's channel. Business Express returns Thursday at 9:30 a.m. Be safe out there.